And I'm not alone anymore on this Femi Friday. Welcome back into the program, my friend, the Super Bowl champ, Femi Ayambadejo. You can follow him on Twitter at ObaFemi30. You can find him on the weekends with Bruce Cunningham on The Fan and a number of other areas. It's great to see you, man. And I'm just going to ask you this first and foremost, because I know you and I know the way you're wired. The last 2 days, meaning Tuesday and Wednesday of this week with mandatory minicamp, what was something that you just found yourself sinking your teeth into from what you were observing now that it was actually substantive outside of just voluntary OTAs?
Yeah, I think it was listening to the coaches talk, listening to the players talk about practice and the learning curve. I think what was the most satisfying thing is that the analogy that I've been giving about learning a new system. And if you think about Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian, they're all Latin languages, right? They're all kind of related. And Lamar made the point that from, the Marty Morningwig offense to the Giro offense to the Monken offense, some of that, little bit of that stuff was carried over. Declan Doyle stuff is all brand new. This is not a Latin language. This is Chinese. And Declan, in one of those sizzle reels, actually said, it's like learning Spanish. So he's kind of saying what I'm saying, right? Like the idea that you're not going to be able to move full speed until the verbiage and nomenclature are not translated into from English to Spanish in your mind or from Spanish to English in your mind. It's got to be second nature. Until that happens, you're going to be a step off. So me, in my mind, in regard to how I communicated the learning curve to people to make it or put it in layman's terms was exactly that. And to hear Declan and Lamar really emphasize those ideas at the podium and also on the field, to me, I think that's the biggest issue because all NFL offenses kind of do the same thing. Yes, different players have different skill sets and different plays are built around those players and coordinators have philosophies and you meld those together, right? But what you call those and how you tag them, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And that's going to be the biggest thing here. Once Declan starts to implement his game plan, it's more about the order of operation than it is the complexity of 3 tight ends, 2 tight ends, 3 wides. Declan's going to have his thumb on the scale in what he wants to do, but how he calls it and tags it, that's the difficult part. And I saw a huge emphasis this week about that. And, being an offensive guy, not that I ignored the defense, I got some comments about that too. Defenses are always a little bit ahead. Defenses are easier to call. The responsibilities are a lot more clear. Now, you can get exotic, of course, and make things as complicated as you want. But offense has a much thicker playbook. So that was satisfying to hear them talk about, communicate, and emphasize throughout OTAs and voluntary workouts.
Let's cut to one of those reels that you referenced because Declan was wired on Ravens Wired, and I think it allowed for a glimpse into the way that he's operating thus far as the next OC under Jesse Minter.
Right there, here we go. I'm the X. I'm talking in the huddle. All right, before L steps in, I'm repeating who I am. All right, Bates, I'm the X. Here we go. Wristband 1, L. Just point that toe and then just trust that angle. You know what I'm saying? You're still reading it out, but just trust it. D-Way, we're trying to score touchdowns, you know what I mean? Oh, yeah. I want to see it. I want to see you catch and transition. It's good to come out here and, have to do it.
That's the best part, man.
Yeah. Well, it's always in the grass. As soon as you cross the white lines. Speed off the ball. Here we go. Good work. Finish. Here we go. In and out. Let's go. I like that first step, Derek. That's good. You hit this thing with speed. All right, as soon as you pass it, you're going to stick that foot in the ground vertical, and then I'm going to run out of it. Right. And you're going to be wide open. Do it again. Reload. Here we go. Reload. Hey, step out real quick. 8. Step out. All right. Make sure this thing, tight huddle, okay? Everybody's eyes on L, okay, where we're supposed to be. All right, you step in, you command it. Here we go. Yes, L. Yes. And then you're putting that foot in the ground and bursting off it. That's right. Drive by and then finish that read all the way back through just to get used to it. Okay, finish that throw, and then you're going in cut, stick return, wide. Make sense? Yes. That's it right there, right? Good, L. We gotta keep learning the language. It's like learning Spanish, you know? Some more tape to coach off of.
Always.
Let's go, buddy. You love it.
There you go. At the end, you referenced that second language comprehension, right? The terminology part of it. And it was such an astute observation by you. And we also talked about it yesterday that this is brand new, that it seems as if Todd was okay to allow some of those principles and concepts to overlap into his offense at the start of the 23 season after Giro left in 2022. Now it's a clean slate. And this is a guy that has preached alongside his head coach the ability of attention to detail, the speed off the ball that Dwayne Ledford's spoken so attentively about since he became the offensive line coach and run game coordinator. This connector, this relationship builder, right? This communication side of things, but also the discipline. And Josh Tolentino noting here that Mark Andrews was penalized pre-snap for a false start. We heard about this. He was taken off the field, and he just talked about this recently. Declan did in one of his media availabilities where he preached cadence and also was very clear that pre-snap fouls this time of year is something they have to get weeded out because it's unacceptable in a couple months from now, that time of year. So it's a guy that's not just talking about specific disciplinary items and expectations, but he's living them out and demanding them now that when push comes to shove.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about this access that we get from these sizzle reels and video is that when he talks about, like, you know, everything happens on the grass, everything happens between the white lines, like everybody's reduced down to getting coached hard. And when you can see that consistency from a Lamar Jackson and a Derrick Henry to a Wade to an undrafted free agent, like everyone's getting talked to the same. There's no coddling. There's no hand holding. It's just like, this is the expectation. And I love that a 30-year-old coach, 29, 30, however old he is, that has a presence of mind and understands that, and Bobby, you know how I am about communication, right? It's always about curiosity, collaboration, connection, and conflict. And Declan Doyle understands it innately. All good leaders and coaches do. And I love seeing that. I love seeing that the conflict comes last. The communication, this connection, collaborative part is always first. These are probably things that happened way before they got on the field. And once you create chaos and conflict, the players are good with it because you established a connection and a relationship first. And Jesse Minter from day one wasn't just lip service. I'm actually seeing it. And I think that it's undervalued and under the glue that creates is going to be so good for this team. It's such a rare thing. And I've been in so many locker rooms. I've been in so many, organizations, agnostically speaking, outside of football, where the organization itself on its face looks great. But then when you pierce the building itself or the figurative white lines of an institution, you get in there and you're like, these people can't communicate. A communications company doesn't know how to communicate. This is bonkers to me. And so to see a 29, 30-year-old first-time play caller, I guess second-time coordinator, really grab the bull by the horns and be so confident in his intelligence and his coaching and teaching ability, I cannot overestimate or amplify how important this is going to be. Like, I'm just really excited about it. I don't think this is why I'm so bullish on this Ravens team and what they're going to be able to accomplish as an organization, and that they are contenders right now, in my opinion.
A lot of people in the live chat right now is, by the way, it's hard not to share those sentiments that you just did. It does not to say that there aren't significant underlying questions going into the year. I think every single team has those. The Ravens are not excluded from that category. I spent the first 30 minutes prior to your arrival talking about Nnamdi and how it's just this, did this worst kept secret just thicken in the last couple of days when Roquan's ripping off, his name when talking about the defensive front, when Jesse's talking about how he expects every player to be ready to go by the start of camp. I mean, there's so much optimism, or at least room for optimism, as it relates to Nnamdi. And we know the other questions about center and who's going to be wide receiver 3 and so on and so forth. Speaking of wide receiver, you chimed in via Super Chat yesterday in the live chat. And also now folks in the live chat are noticing that Bateman and Declan were seen interacting in one of those sizzles that we just referenced. Rashad was not around, or at least not participating in mandatory minicamp, and we know that he's stayed away for a good chunk of OTAs. We also know that he's a new father. Throwing that out there. Jesse Minter shared recently that he's dealing with some personal things. Could that be the tie-in there? Perhaps, but we don't know. We also know that he's been at the the crux of trade discussions as recently as a year ago with the Cowboys. There was a lot of smoke around that. But we also know that he's under contract for the foreseeable future in Baltimore. And what he shared that he can do in 2024 as a ceiling is really, obviously compelling knowing that there's a brand new offense and a clean slate for everyone. Do you want to expand on your super chat yesterday in terms of why you're not concerned, even with his lack of participation at times this year, knowing that he has been in the building outside of OTAs and mandatory minicamp?
I didn't know that it got fiery in the chat when Sarah was talking about it yesterday, because I wasn't, like, honestly, I don't even look at the chat anymore. I don't. I don't care to look at it. There's 5 or 10 people that are always doing some dumb shit, and I just, you know me, like I don't tolerate that. Like, I'm a grown up, I'm an adult, I've raised 3 kids, I got a real job, I do real shit. Like, I don't have time for fucking silliness. I just don't. So let me just be very clear. Sarah interpreted what I said appropriately. I didn't know what was going on, but as a former player, I just know that the coaches, players, and staff always know what's going on. And it's not our right, nor are we required to know everything at all times. We're just not. And so my interpretation of what Sarah was saying, I felt like as a content creator and as a fan, she has a right to be curious, 100%. And hopefully in the voice note that I left you guys, she understood that. I do think there's a blurring of the line of what we're supposed to know and what we're allowed to know and whether we should know, right? There's a kind of a blurring of that line. And so the point that I wanted to make is that Bateman is one of 90 guys. Now, I know his weight is more than 1/90th of the team, but not much more than that right now. It's not. I am not overly concerned with one receiver when I think of the different variants of personnel groups, the different variants within 11 personnel. That could be Elijah Surratt, that could be Jacoby Lane, that could be Tez and some other guys with Zay. He's just, in the big scheme, I'm just not worried about it, because the number of guys that are going to be contributing is the weight of performance is balanced amongst those guys. And the 2 most important guys on offense is, guess who? Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Bateman, I'm not worried about. If Bateman doesn't play, I do not care. I am literally not worried about it. That's how much weighting I think he has. Now, if you're going to be consumed, and this is why I think I was trying to make a point to Sarah, is if you're overly concerned about 11 personnel or 12 personnel, which is going to be 2 receivers, and you think Bateman's contribution is going to predicate whether they are a playoff team or a Super Bowl championship team, that's a debate that we could have. I just don't think that. I think that they're going to live in a world that is very 2 tight end heavy. They're going to do a lot more 13 personnel than most teams are. They've got 2 rookies that they drafted. That tells you a lot right there. They got a guy in Tez who I think is on the up and coming. You got a number 1 receiver who's also rising. I just don't think that Sarah's concern, to me, I'm just not there. I just don't think that your number 2 receiver and whether he's going to be this and why he's there and why he's not. And as a former player, I think that it's natural for me not to be worried, because I know that the communication and the reasoning, they know, like the team from an insular level knows. And so once training camp comes and training camp starts, none of this is going to matter. I promise you, it's not going to matter. Now, when it could matter, there's a couple of different future outcomes here where it could matter. Now, Bate has a terrible training camp where Bate gets hurt in training camp. Then people are going to say, well, hey, he didn't do the stuff in the off season, and maybe that's the reason why, because that's what people do. The reality of it is he could have been there every day and had great practices and still go out there and get hurt. That's just a possibility when you play football. So to put a bow on it, man, when you break down all the different guys that are going to contribute, the drafting of 2 young receivers, the drafting of 2 tight ends, the fact that the Ravens have been an elite offense before Bate, they'll be an elite offense after Bate. They've been an elite offense with Bate. I just don't think his weighting of how the Ravens are going to perform is that big of a deal to me. I'm just keeping it real with you. And guess what? On top of that, the starting center, it's probably a little bit more important than that, but not that much more important than that. I believe this. I believe that Javon Gwynn, before it's all said and done, could be the starting center. I don't think it's an accident that Coach Ledford brought him here from Atlanta. He didn't bring him here to hold the clipboard. He brought him out here to compete for a starting position with Danny Pinter. The thing I like about Pinter is that he's a big guy. He's 6'4" and he's nimble. I think people are severely underestimating the center talent that we have because it hasn't been proven yet. But I, as a former player, once again, I see things in a way
that I don't need to see it happen to know that it has the potential to be good. And as fans and observers, which we all are, we all have a right to our opinion on it. But once again, I'm not overly emotional or overly concerned about it. I hope all that makes sense, Bobby. That's where my head was at when I was kind of contributing in the super chat, and indirectly, these are the conversations I've had at 105.7 The Fan with Kevin Ostreicher and other people that have asked me about it.
Well, damn, I was going to go in a different direction, but now you dropped a prediction on Gwyn, and so I was going to go the rookie wide receiver route, but let's just hang on tight for a second.
Let's do both. Let's do both.
What we know here is that thus far, Javon Gwyn, your dark horse, and Danny Pinter, the veteran. Of course, Javon comes over from Atlanta, to your point. Pinter comes over from Indianapolis. Both are veterans in a sense. Pinter's been more of a veteran than Gwyn has, and he's older, a little bit more experienced, not in terms of, starts per se. Certainly not far from a Garrett Bradbury. There continues to be speculation around him, knowing that Chicago brought in a rookie. We all know who that is. So both of these players, meaning Pinter and Gwyn, to this point, Bullock is dealing with something physically. That's my interpretation based on what Jesse Minter shared. So these are the two that have split the first team reps prior to training camp, meaning Dawkins and Bullock are not in this race at the moment. That's subject to change 6 weeks out. Things could change over the summer. You're thinking that the Gwyn carryover with Ledford is significant enough to throw that prediction out 6 weeks out from training camp.
Yeah, I do, because I listened to the Lounge podcast more than once, and I've kind of triangulated based on other statements that I've heard, other people that have observed practices. I've been thinking this for a while, but I haven't said it out loud. This, as you like to say, 10 toes down with my chest out, right? Who's the person who's always checking your catchphrases? Who is that?
Chef Trez counts my barring something unforeseen on a whiteboard.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So tell Chef Trez to put a mark next to those two statements. But I just think the more I learn and the more I hear, I felt like I was on my own little island when I made the statement a while back that I said, I think there's a good more than 50% chance that the starting center is already in the building. It was so close to the draft and after the draft, and everybody was so disappointed that we didn't draft the center. Once again, we have this team this year on paper is so much deeper, is so much more talented than last year's team. After the fallout of saying the Ravens had the best roster in 2025, no one's going to say they have the best roster in 2026. They'll say they have a top 10 roster, which will be a fair statement. But if you look across the board from edge to defensive interior linemen to corners, receivers, in my opinion, as a group, the youth, obviously the running back with Adam Randall, in my opinion, I think he's a future starter. I'm going to say that now. The tight ends, we got really young. Hibner is a top 10 shorts and helmet performer in regard, and I know there's no helmets at the combine, but he is in the top 10% of tight ends ever at the combine. And I watched his film. I think this dude is going to be a star in the NFL. I really do. So when I take all this into account, I actually think this team is better. And then you add the coaching effect, the philosophical and schematic advancements, the vanguard of young, youthful thinking on both sides of the ball. I think this team is going to be way better than last year's team, because we always relied on, we're the Ravens, you know what we're going to do, and we dare you to stop us. All that's gone now. Nothing is going to be predictable. And so I'm really excited about that part. And once again, I think that part is being severely underestimated. And going back to the center position, when it comes to Gwyn, as I said, I've listened to numerous people that I trust make comments that were off-the-cuff comments, but it was 5 different people that made the same comment. And I was thinking this a long time ago, and I put a pin in that, and I said, you know what? I think Gwyn, when it's all said and done, might end up being the starter. And now I also think that the starter could be in the building. I'm more like 60-40 now that the starter's in the building. Now, look, could they still trade for Bradbury? Bradbury, I believe, was coached by Ledford in college, I think. So there's a relationship there which makes it more likely. But the Bears need to gather their business intelligence around Logan. And are they willing to trade away a guy that they just got and put a rookie in before they put pads on? If we wait until that happens, then what? I just feel like it gets messy and it creates a bunch of uncertainty the longer this goes. And my drop dead date was June 1st. Like, if this didn't happen right around June 1st, I'm even more confident in what I believe in regard to who the starting center is going to be. So let me end that right there and see what you think about that. That's where I'm at today.
Oh, it's fascinating. And you're looking at the two guys that are competing up until this point that we keep mentioning, Javon Gwynn and Danny Pinter. If it ends up being Gwynn, just to be clear, this is a player that has 11 offensive snaps total in his career. So I'm not saying Pinter is that much more experienced. He's been a journeyman reserve player for the Colts throughout his career. But that is who the Ravens would be leaning on at the center position. But knowing that they have made additions and on paper upgrades to his right and left, maybe they get away with it. And then the Bradbury connection, just to be clear there. So Dwayne Ledford, let's see, Bradbury played at NC State. And Dwayne was there as, let's see, the offensive line coach from 16 to 18. Bradbury was there from 14 to 18. So every single year he was there, Ledford was there. So let's not throw out that idea. You certainly weren't. And I could see that being the case. But I'm with you. My gut tells me, and has been telling me for weeks, if not months at this point, that the starters on the roster, are they moneyballing the center position in a sense? Possibly. But because of the upgrades that they've made to his right and left, I think they can get away with it. We saw Seattle get away with it to the tune of a freaking Super Bowl championship.
Exactly.
With an undrafted rookie. The Ravens have leaned on undrafted rookies before. Gwynn and Pinter are not undrafted rookies, but they're guys that are inexperienced. And in Pinter's case, a veteran that perhaps they're comfortable with. Dwayne certainly is, knowing his familiarity with Gwynn. And he alluded to your point earlier on this offseason on the lounge, that he's excited for Gwynn because he feels like this could be his time. And I don't think that should be ignored.
Are people losing their minds? now that we're talking about that, I just think that because everyone has been so emotionally drugged through the whole, like, losing Tyler and how it happened, and we had a chance to give him the 5th-year option. I just feel like fans in general, they've been told that we need a center. They've been told that we got to go out and get in center. So it's almost like we've been brainwashed to some degree by the bombardment from the media and local media on how important it is to get a center, that it's almost like I hear people losing their minds over it. I'm just not there. I just don't believe that. And if they do, hopefully I've talked them off the ledge and not pushed them over it. That's always my objective and my goal.
Ask and you shall receive. Folks want Javon Gwynn film. Again, 11 total snaps in his NFL career. You're going to get him. Offensive side of the ball. He's number 52, mainly playing right guard. These were clips from NFL Pro that Jonas Schaefer
or Pinter is going to be the starter. And I'm fine with it. Like, I look at all the different things they've done from John Simpson to Venga Ione to the new coordinator and the new offensive line coach. I just think we're going to be fine. There's no such thing as a perfect team that has, a 10 out of 10 guy starting at every position. That just doesn't exist. And guys that were nobodies. I played with John Randall in Minnesota. John Randall was a star when I got to Minnesota, but he was an undrafted free agent. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like, there are stories like this that happen all the time, and guys don't become who they're meant to be until they get an opportunity. And if anything, the NFL is about guys getting opportunity. There are a bunch of guys that are undrafted free agents, late round draft picks that end up being the best receiver in the NFL, probably Puka Nacua. What was he, a 5th or 6th round draft pick? Can you imagine what the Rams fans were thinking when they saw him out there? Like, who the F is this guy? Why is he starting? And then all of a sudden, yes, Puka's starting. You know what I mean? Like, it's people just, I know that we don't always have all the information, but we listen to what people are talking about, and we're kind of drugged, by our naivete to some degree, even my own sometimes. There's certain things I don't know when I hear it. I'm just kind of like, well, I heard this, so I guess that's where I'm going to anchor myself. All I'm saying is be open-minded to the possibility that the guy who's going to be at center is on the roster, and it could be a good thing. He could end up being really, really good, and we're going to be okay.